See, there I am.
I was just taking the also yes, nice. You can maybe it's a space. Otherwise you might, yeah.
All right, as usual.
We're gonna write the numbers. Yeah, we have.
I like the way you say that. My wife didn't agree.
So we can time.
Anna, sorry, don't you want to just press on that thing to stop boiling the background?
This once.
Yeah, the water out of yes. Is the light off?
Sorry.
Yes,
Now
yes,
it's off.
yes.
Okay, but it's good with it.
Let's see if they work. Thank you. Let's check. Let's actually start with making everybody got muted. And then, hello. We have to open the chat. We can't hear them. We will open the chat.
Unlock them.
Okay, everybody is muted. Ilya. Let me check it. But it's funny actually. We got. I mean, we did a test before here. Hello, everybody. Can you hear? Or maybe I am muted. No, I'm not muted.
Actually, I'll mute them.
Put this in so to actually see who's there.
Actually, unmute them manually. Recall them.
Yes, please. Just a few minutes to start coding.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, hi, Ilya. How are you? We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good. Are you on lockdown in Monday or are you where?
Pardon?
No, okay. No. We're just checking the sound and we're starting in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hello. Hi, Joanna. Hi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah.
Hi, this is Delgado from NOST. It's regarding the meeting today at 2. Are you
How
able
long
to?
are you talking? Because I'm at work now.
Ah, you're at work. Well,
Yes.
that would be, let's say, 1 hour. But okay, if you have difficulties, then we can maybe call you when we would have a question. Is that okay?
You have a question?
Yes, but maybe if you're at work, please don't take off time from work. Maybe we will try with Tommy, Philip, or Bianca. Is that okay?
Yes, of West.
Yes.
Sibile of West,
Okay. Yes, we have their numbers, so we will call them.
Yes, I sent for you the numbers.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Papa. Bye.
Hello. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah.
Memo, I'm sorry, there's somebody on the line here.
Hi, Tommy. It's Delgado from Nost. Would you be able to take our call?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can we call him digitalization? Yeah,
They're expecting the phone call. Hi, Philip.
Yes.
Hi, this is Delgado from Nost. Is regarding the phone call today. Can you take our phone call?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Just please hold the line.
Okay.
And then we try that.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please consult your directory and call again, or ask your operator for assistance.
Let's just try with the two numbers, and that's it.
This number does not exist on MTC's network.
Is
Please
this
read
9
out
or 2?
carefully.
Two.
This number does not exist on
It was also-
MTC's
it was also
network.
not
Please
working
read out
earlier this
carefully.
morning. So let's cancel
This
that
number
one
does
and
not
let's just
exist
stick
on
with
MTC.
Mhm, exactly. Good. So we have you. We're starting our meeting any moment now. So thank you for waiting. For those under the phone, and also thank you for those at Zoom for the patience. We are starting now. Great. We see that everybody can hear us in Zoom. So we will start. Can I will just sit for briefly here next to the microphone. This is my name is Guillermo Delgado, and I coordinate a program at NOST called the Land Livelihoods and Housing at the Integrated Land Management Institute. Very briefly, what we try to do is to bring together the expertise at NOST on issues of land, livelihoods, and housing through activities around research and public outreach. So this is the first event that we organized after lockdown. So we were clear we wanted to not only do something virtual or something completely live, but to do a blended modality. So we did, although it might not look like, but we did 2 rehearsals to make sure that all the technology was on our side. So we are, but we are, I think, I'm happy to see that the colleagues at Zoom can listen to us. We have here about 8 participants in our boardroom at the Department of Architecture and Spatial Planning here at NOST. And the theme in which this discussion takes place is, we call it Namibia's urban future, where we would like to be hosting discussions about those ongoing or planned projects that are basically deciding on Namibia's urban future, or that are going to impact significantly the urban future of Namibia. So we took as a sort of occasion the opportunity that it's now available for anybody to comment on the proposed Spatial Development Framework for Swakopmund. As some of you know, the opportunities there available until tomorrow. The draft documents are online. We will have them in a moment in a screen here through one of the users for those who are online to see, but also you can download them yourself from the page of the Swakopmund municipality. If you don't have that page, it's also available in the social media and the website of ILMI, where you might have actually received the invitation. This document is remarkable as one of the designers that were involved in this project remarked. This is arguably the first occasion where an urban designer is involved in such a document. Spatial development frameworks together with structure plans are very influential documents, if not determinant, on the way that development unfolds in urban areas. So we thought that by the possibility of mobilizing colleagues from the university, students, and practitioners, colleagues that are involved with community groups and with different practices, to be able to have a discussion. Something that is also novel about this meeting is that, strictly speaking, we won't have this kind of dynamic of a presenter discussant, but we're lucky enough to have here Winfried Holze, who was part of the development of this framework. So what I would propose is that I'm relatively familiar with those who are joining us with Zoom, and also with those who are joining us here at NOST. So what I would propose is to just start with some interventions from first Mr. Holzer, then to have also interventions from perhaps people in the room here at NOST, perhaps the colleagues from trying to kind of have a bit of a balance of disciplines, and then try and see how moderation goes by negotiating it online, Zoom, on the phone, and here in the room. In the phone, we have 3 members of the Jacques Deleuze Federation of Namibia from Swakopmund, from Mondesa Group, and I'm not sure if, I think we're missing one that was from DRC, but her phone is not picking up. So this is relatively complex, but we would like to actually, since the documents are online and we depart from the assumption that you have familiarized yourself with the document, we would like to try the modality of an open discussion, starting with Winfried, if you agree. Good. I would just need to maybe ask you to come here, because then here, this is the microphone. Okay, so.
Do I see what I see in terms of the map, the plan?
The map behind you.
Yeah, is it also, can I see it digitally?
Yeah, if you turn the camera.
No, the camera stays there. Morgan is the user, and she will be now sharing her screen.
Okay.
Yes. We will be. For those who are in Zoom, there's a user, Morgan Jansen. She will share her screen in a moment, and she will be displaying the map. Yes, now you can see it.
All right, I'm Winfried Holze from Winfried Holze Urban Design Architecture, and I've had the pleasure of working on this project. It is a great project, and it's one of a kind in Namibia, one of the first ones, but there will be more. But because Swakopmund is such a interesting place and such a much thought about place with many interests, it becomes that much more interesting. But it is also very interactive. The people are very participant and they all are concerned about their place. So that's why it makes it such a nice place. In terms of a structure plan, I think Barry will help me right, but in terms of hierarchy, the structure plan comes first. That is the overriding urban or planning tool, followed by the town planning scheme, and then followed by the smaller developments, the designs, the architectural designs, and so on. So the structural plan is kind of the determinator. Where does this town go towards? Which direction? What does it want to be? What is its development? It is an indication on the one hand to the municipality to advise people how things are supposed to develop in the town. And on the other hand, it is also for any developer or any person who wants to invest, that they know, okay, this is where the town develops towards, and this is how the people want it to look like. And these are the aims of a town. So coming to that, we had to think, the very first question is, what does Swakopmund want to be? And so you can have a lot of ideas about it. Say you want it to be an industrial place, or you want it an academic place, or you want it pure business, and so on. But Swakopmund has various things which tell us which direction it needs to go. And one of them is tourism. Another one is mining. So we decided not to go in the direction of industry, because Walvis Bay is next door. Walvis Bay is the industry hub, and so Swakopmund has to be something else. And Swakopmund, so we said, is more in the direction of tourism, academics, small business and business, small industry, that kind of development. But now we also have a certain heritage or a certain way the town has developed, and we have to take cognizance of that. We have to recognize it, and we cannot just wipe it away and do something new. So we have to work with it, and we see a lot of opportunities and a lot of things what can happen. Just to, I don't know, do you have a map which I can point towards? Or does everybody get the map?
So the map is in this computer, so you can next to this computer and point out.
Okay.
Not on this one.
Okay. All right. Okay, does everybody see my cursor? Great.
The team's view.
Morgan is sharing her view, so we should be seeing Morgan's.
Your arrow was showing on that just now. Right?
Yeah, but this is the screen on the camera.
Okay.
I think on the Zoom.
It should be shown. We can't blur that background now. If it was sharing successfully, it would be shown.
Should I share my screen instead? That was just the only thing is okay. The rest will not be able to.
Really?
But that's a Morgan screen.
It's Morgan's screen, but not Morgan's cursor.
No, that's not a problem. We can quickly download the documents and sharing from this screen. It was for the colleagues. If I share my screen, they stop seeing the participants in the room, which I think is not so important.
Yeah.
Would you like to use this?
Yeah,
map or-
that's nice, yeah.
Let me do this full screen. Okay.
Okay, does everybody see the cursor?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. All right, so this is now the plan of Swakopmund, or the extent of Swakopmund. This is the entire Swakopmund area. The townlands and the registered Swakopmund line is that one there, and then going left down there. This is the river here at the bottom, Swakop River. This is the ocean, and it's the desert up there. So, and then we have this line here, which is the new bypass, which is going from Henties to Walvis Bay. So what we started off with, I think the individual maps you can download and you can read it and so on. I'm just giving just a basic quick overview. Here at the bottom you have the CBD, which is the historical center. Then you go further up. Here's the municipality of Swakopmund. There's Mondesa over here. This is the current industrial area. There's the airport over here, and this is Vineta and Mile 4 over here. And then we have the salt pans over there. This is still green area or unbuilt area, and this is actually the desert area over here. At the bottom, we have the golf course, Swakopmund and Nonidas developments. Then we have the small-scale farmers over here, and these are large plots, also agricultural. At the moment, there is this area here, which is called the Nonidas industrial area, which has been proclaimed before we started with our scheme. So that is a given. Up here is a Chinese satellite station, which is also a given, which we can't take away. Then at the bottom is the current, how do you call it, the back room of Swakopmund, where they have relocated the sewer plant, and they want to relocate some other things there. And currently this whole area here, apart from that, is empty. Now, the other thing is what you do with this situation, where at the moment you have the CBD, which is the money generator, where all the value is and so on. Then you have this industrial area, which is separated. Then you have these vast areas of low density residential. And then you have other residential areas which are low density but poor, low income. So this is also in a way, it's still the old apartheid kind of plan, where you have a separator here, which used to be or is the main road to Henties Bay at this stage, but it effectively also separated the rich from the poor. And it was assisted by the school, which was there, and there's institutional urban alongside it. So we had to now figure out something to combine or to get the city going. And our main theme was the inclusive city, which means we want to be inclusive. It should not exclude anybody or anything. Exclusion means also that the road must be used not only by car, but by bicycle and by pedestrians. And at this stage, everything is in a way zoned and separated and that kind of stuff. So what we came up with, the very first thing we said, okay, let's stop development here at the bypass, which is like a barrier. It's like a wall. it's like a wall of China. It is, you cannot gap it. So we have to work inwards. So even though you see now the whole structure plan as a total, it is phased. So the first phase would be this. So all development in Swakopmund has to happen inside there until such time when it is really too dense or too we cannot move anymore. Then we jump the freeway and we develop further. And the thing about the structure plan is, how does it look like when you jump the freeway? So people want to know what is the future development of Swakopmund once it jumps the freeway, which is in, say, we have information about the population growth of Swakopmund, and we worked that out. So that jump would happen in about 30 years, somewhere around there. Then the interior of Swakop may be too dense to develop or too dense for further development, which I personally don't think so. You know, I mean, Hong Kong fits into there, and Hong Kong is quite a dense development. But anyway, if Swakopmund were to jump the freeway, this is how the development would happen. But let's continue. Swakopmund itself. The idea is also, how do you? Sorry, that was my phone.
Okay, let me know when you remember. Shall
So how do you get the city to be inclusive if you have these separated areas, and if you have a very intense central CBD where people are very worried about their little backyard and their little houses there? And our opinion was that Swakopmund is not the CBD. Swakopmund is the whole of Swakopmund. It includes everybody. Now, how do you combine these various interests and to get them together into an economic whole? So what our suggestion was, start development along corridors was one point. Not corridors for individual development, individual investment, individual commerce. The second point was the airport here is a bit of a problem in Swakopmund in terms of safety. And again, there's something which happened which is a good example of ministries not talking to each other and authorities and so on. The new freeway here has a bridge over the railway line, but that bridge is just high enough for the airplanes not to be able to land and take off anymore. So there's a bit of a clash there. So our first suggestion is to move the airport out to another location. If that is moved out, then a lot of things can happen. It's like industry, like housing, additional housing. Because one other concept was that the poorest of the poor are staying to the north of the town, but working.
COC. But they're not really, so they said I must come here.
I'm sorry,
speak to one of my staff members
On the site.
in any of the office.
I think it is some colleagues that are perhaps participants, and then it should be
Okay. All right. Sorry about the little interruption. So the thing is, the poorest of the poor are staying the furthest away from the points of activity. So our point is, if we do corridors, we bring them together. The other thing is, all right, I started with the airport to be moved, which opens up a lot of possibilities in that area. The other thing is, say now the poorest are over there and the richest are over there. How do you get them linked? So if you have along Daniel Kamo Road, you increase the importance of Daniel Kamo Road. It becomes like we always say, almost like in a shopping center. You have two anchor tenants on either side of a shopping center. On the one side you have Checkers, on the other side you have Pick and Pay. So here it would be the same. The idea is that at Mondesa we would have a Mondesa CBD kind of thing, and at the bottom is the existing CBD. So the importance of the current CBD starts stretching away from itself towards the north, but then we have another route which is along the existing railway line at the bottom. So we thought that could be also nice activity spine, because the next thing is the railway line. The railway line currently runs in a bend, and it has a very, very sharp bend here at the corner. And then it goes back to Walvis Bay. Now, there's a lot of complaints about this little bend and concerns that the railways, they are transporting assets to the mines, and sooner or later they will be transporting petrol. And the bend is actually so narrow that they have to drive there in very slow pace, and it's, you know, something can happen if something like that explodes or the acid flows out. It's not good for the town. So we suggested to relocate the railway line, which would then be a new line down to Walvis Bay. And yesterday we had a discussion with Transnamib, and they actually said, but why don't we keep the line for a tram, or regrade that line to a kind of a tram system, which you know, they also wanting to putting more passenger travel. They want to have more activity, more goods onto the trains. So they're thinking very green and very forward. So this is a win-win situation. If we, and the next thing is, there the bend is, that whole area belongs to Transnamib. So another thought was, you know, how do I, currently the CBD is very dead, and or it only is active when tourists are there, and late at night nothing happens. So how do you get activity into the town? And the one activity would be, you know, get students in, young people. So if young people are there, then you have cafes, you have shops, you have activity. So that property of Transnamib could be an ideal university site. And in terms of university, we say it must be a kind of a specialized university which specializes in, I'd call it oceanographics, or, you know, marine biology. But it could also specialize in mining, uranium, that kind of stuff. You know, so that it is not just a university, but a university where the entire world wants to be to study something. So it's a dedicated place. So you get international students, you get international people there. So if we have a tram there, and then they said, yeah, we need a kind of a station. So we said, you know, if the airport goes away, there at the top where the railway line comes in, we would suggest a station which is closest to the people, Mondesa, etc. And from there onwards, you can take a tram or so into town, or, you know, even if it is what is it, that fancy railway line, Rovers line comes in, can go right to the tip and then carry on back. So there's an idea of tourism coming in. The next thing which we then thought of, a pilot project or the starter, is Daniel Kamo. Why Daniel Kamo? Daniel Kamo is the widest road in Swakopmund, because it used to be the national road linking Henties Bay with Walvis Bay, and it is 28 meters wide. So this is a huge opportunity to start mixed activities there without, how do you call it, without compromises. So in that space, I worked out I can fit in from earth boundary to earth boundary, starting from the western side, from the eastern side, which is the existing now side where all the factories are, or businesses are. There's the state nursery, the municipality is there, and so on. So if I have a 4-meter pavement, I have a say my 2.5, 3-meter slip lane, a parking lane, a bicycle lane, and then like a green strip where trees can be in, then a double road going down, and the same to the other side. Then I have enough space for cars to drive safely, drive slowly, to park, bicycle lanes, and I still have 28 meters for a residential or for urban to happen there. So we suggested to be a commercial mixed use, the new term is shop house development there. And because we cannot have you cannot have businesses facing a busy street and still parking and the parking requirement, which is normally in the town planning scheme and so on. So we still have another, how do you call it, a service alleyway behind these properties, so that is for private use, and the public can walk in front. So that is, it gets quite intense but that is already urban design. It's already passed structure plan. So that would be now pulling in people towards a road which links two areas, the low residential on the one side and the poor residential on the other side. And that becomes how do we call it, a long shopping mall almost activity route, and starting to have businesses and the lower scale, if you don't have more people who can use it. So the idea is to increase the density, the living density of residential urban on either side, to allow more people on properties, things like that. Then the big contentious issue is the building height, because everybody is concerned about the building height, and there is already an approved allowance until 40 meter, and understandably all the people here at the beach side, they don't want to have these huge blocks in front of their view, blocking the view to the sea, meaning that if we say also inclusive, we're thinking, or we want that everybody, the entire population, has access to a beach, which you can now see, like the waterfront currently and Plaza Mer and various properties, they have exclusive access to the beach, and we want to avoid that kind of thing, because the beach and the sea belongs to everybody. So and we don't want it to be blocked by huge tall buildings. So what the idea is, a gradient from beach front towards inland is where the building height increases. The highest buildings would be along Daniel Camo. Obviously, we still have coverage and bulk calculations, which we need to take care of. So if you have a small plot, you obviously will not be able to go 40 meters, because you just can't do the parking and the coverage in the bulk. So that will kind of cancel each other out. But the thing is, there are a couple of plots there which are very big, and they can accommodate buildings up to 40 meters. So this is the thing where we need to control a bit. It all started with property 4747 there at the Mole, which started the ball rolling. Where do we allow 14 meters and where do we allow less? And so we have set up, which is in the document, areas where 40 meters can happen and where it should not happen. That is the idea of a structure plan. It's about 30. It's about, yeah, 20. Yeah.
20 stories.
Yes.
2 meters per story.
No, 3 meters per story. So it is 15, yeah. So currently the highest building in Swakop is 4 stories, and that is they have a rule which is the 12-meter rule, plus 3 meters for architectural features. So in actual fact, 15 meters is the top limit, but they wanted to increase it to 40, and that would just not shape the place, would just make it ugly. And that is what we are actively fighting against. And that's why the structure plan then says, here you may do it, here you don't. And that's why, like the Daniel Camo Road is ideal for something like that, but only on the eastern side, so that the buildings on the western side still also have access to the sea or view of the sea. That was actually also a request by the CEO of Swakop, that he wants to be able to see the sea from his office. So that is quite a big determinant, and it's something which we can work with. The other idea is obviously now what we have not considered yet is, which is here the bottom of the Swakop River. where we say, okay, there is now the golf course, the golf estate, and there is Nonidas. So that area can still remain the low density, high income or higher income kind of settlement area. But beyond that, we want to keep it agricultural. We want to keep it big plots, especially because of the water there. So this must be very much of an agricultural area. The B1 or B2, which comes from Windhoek, is supposed to be like a green route which comes into town. Unfortunately, this big interchange by the freeway is a given. We can't move it anymore. It is a very big pity, but well, now it's there. On the other hand, I see it as an opportunity because that is where Swakopmund stops. And I think we should keep on using the freeway as a barrier and leave a development which happens beyond it for the next generation to decide. The airport has been decided to be put up there because it is a least intrusive into a environmentally, how do you call it, protected area. It's a dolomite area. There's a lot of protected species of plants and so on. So this would be a little bit bigger airport, but it would not take now the big jets and so on. It would be just be a bit more convenient and better than the current small airport. The other areas like the 11 there, the police or the prisons want to build a big prison there. They've already bought the land, so we cannot do anything about it. So in overall, the idea is phase number 1 is Swakopmund, development of Swakopmund as until the freeway. Second phase would then be a connection like this, where a loop comes in, which loops the activity routes, and it would terminate in the Nonidas CBD, which would be, say, in 100 years' time. And then the next phase would then be the one further up there, which is a further development. Currently, Swakopmund is using these areas for their soil resources, soil mining, and so on. So we have to see that we restrict it to a certain area and that it doesn't carry on just willy-nilly everywhere. So that is why that activity spine has been conceived. So the furthest road there would be in, say, 150 years. So that would be now the development of Swakopmund. But as I said, our idea is Swakopmund itself, the development. The idea is also the upliftment. The idea is also to stop this idea of low-cost housing further and further away in the desert, where long distances are towards the industrial areas and the CBD. We bringing the commerce, the business to the people and not the people to the business, kind of thing. And that is when starting to uplift the people themselves. The big point of ours is the shop house, the mixed-use small plot development, for which we still have to devise a zone. I'm sure Barry is still busy with that one, maybe.
No, it's called business.
No, it's not called business. It's mixed use. Because business, no, you live in a business.
Yes.
It's a business which also is a livable place. It's not because if you say business, it becomes, it has a higher tax rate and a higher, but the shop house idea is it's totally mixed. You have business there, you have living there, you have institutional there, you have agricultural, all of those things within one little plot.
Whatever sort of business you want in it, including leasing out flats and houses, yeah. It's called business.
Yeah, but it's for a single owner. That one owner is doing all of them.
You have to make sure it's a single owner and that he isn't living in Windhoek and leasing it out.
No, that you won't be, but the problem currently is that the one guy who buys this residential property may only reside there, or if it is a business property, which is a bigger property, he will not be able to afford it. So it needs to be a small property, like a 300 square meters or whatever.
Business.
Okay, but that is overall our concept.
Thank you very much. We have about 10 people in the participants here with us in Zoom. And then I'd like to, I think there's a modality to simply just raise your hand in Zoom. So we will just allow colleagues to raise their hand and we will give you the floor. While that happens, we can actually also open the floor here. We have architects in the room, we have practitioners, planners, students. So I think we have a good array of potential contributions on this. So I'd like to first open the floor here in the room where we are, while the colleagues in Zoom start raising their hand through the button that there is. We have Dr. Anna Müller from the Namibia Housing Action Group. You can just speak towards this device. That would make.
Okay, I hope it's going to be clear. What I'm interested in, I mean, we're talking about quite a bridge. Okay, let me tell you. My question is, if we look at the lowest income and the process that we want to reach most of the people in the country with very little income is incremental housing development. It can work with lower densities, but it cannot work with these kind of high rises that are foreseen. I think that is a very sophisticated construction. You cannot do incremental 13 stories building for housing. Incrementally, you can go up incrementally 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. I think about you can do incrementally. You can build one floor now, build another floor. They do that in the Mediterranean countries a lot, and you see all these rocks sticking out so that you can later on put another floor on top. But where do you spatially see that higher density, but still an incremental process on the individual or maybe a community level? It can be, because higher densities are often communally owned or through a kind of shared ownership we're using at the moment. What is the title street?
Sectional titles.
Sectional those.
Did you have other group things to operate?
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't had yet to see whether the flexible land tenure can allow us to densify, because it's talking about OPEX in the ground. It's talking about the mark on the land. Okay, that is just did you consider that? And if you consider it spatially, where will this happen? And is there opportunities for this higher density, but still incremental?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that is one thing which we considered. The thing is, we didn't do detailed plans. That's a structure plan. The detailed plan then becomes a town planning thing. But the idea is densification, definitely, and provision of those kind of properties and so on along further north, the northern portions. But definitely mixed use, various types of properties. We actually want small properties, but where you can also do business in. So yeah, that is the idea. And whichever scheme you want or so on, we basically have the activity spines where the main commercial businesses ideas happen, but beyond that, there's still the residential opportunities, those kind of things. The further north of Mondesa and so on, those areas haven't been planned out yet fully, even by town planners. So, there is still scope to change things and to do things. This structure plan is just to say, where are we going? What do we want? So,
just connecting a follow-up for this. We have in the phone we have two colleagues that are members of the Shackles Federation from Mondesa, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps it would be good to ask them if they have a question following up with Anna's question regarding incremental upgrading. Tommy and Philip, do you have perhaps a question? We might have. Can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you.
Do you have perhaps a question regarding the plan that was presented? I mean, unfortunately, you could not see the map, but did you hear about the opportunities that are available for upgrading, incremental upgrading in the new Spatial Development Framework?
Yeah, yes, I hear it. I do have a question. In Swakopmund, we have 3 sites, it's a 4 sites, informal settled areas. The property DRC and seaside and airport site, there are 2 sites. Like they told us in the last meeting, they told us in the area what we are staying is close, very close to the airport. So, but right now I hear the rumors, maybe it's a rumors or maybe it's a true story. They say they are busy. Right now they are busy calling the people in from property DRC so that they can start the day to build their houses. But I am not hearing anything from them for our area here, because we are close to 305. We are having 305 events, but nothing is happening here. There is no electricity. There is no poles. We are staying in the darkness. So I wanted to know about us. What are they planning for the future? That's my question. Hello.
Okay. No, yes, we heard your question. So
okay.
Is there some kind of a response? Perhaps I would interpret it as what are the strategies for the low income areas that he mentioned.
Yeah, you see, as said just now, we are interested in higher density. Actually, the denser the pop, the better. What about the individual properties is not our concern right now. It is the municipality. They will have to deal with that thing, and that is not the purpose of a structure plan to tell the municipality exactly what they do. So it is a thing which has been already going with them, and it is out of our hands.
What I hear from what he asked is, are they not on the other side of the main road? So it is a question. There's no planning to develop on the other side.
No, definitely not.
The spatial plan.
Not now.
Okay.
So the thing is, if they jump the freeway, it is not in the interest of the structure plan.
And the last, I think another question connected to it came from one colleague in the land administration section, who noted that the area for the flexible land tenure was a confined area, whereas the specialists on flexible land tenure see that it should be mandatory in all informal, wherever there's an informal settlement, to voluntarily apply for flexible land tenure to gain ownership of the land. So if it is to designated areas, it confines, it again confines and is not in line with the purpose of the way that flexible land tenure is conceived by some specialists in the land administration field. Was that your decision to confine the flexible land tenure to a certain area, or?
No, we haven't even touched on that. We see it as a general thing for the whole town. Wherever if they have a project like that, then we must see where we can fit it in.
No one has yet actually experimented with the flexible land tenure system.
Good. We have then 2 questions here on the floor, one by Philip and another one by Mr. Watson. Philip, would you like to start? Okay, and then Ms. Shretekiva on screen.
Yes. Okay, actually, three questions. And you partially answered already, but I mean, I see indeed, like, you know, being a structure plan, large areas that are designated, you know, for where we use the words, you know, high density residential versus low density residential and so on. Quite substantive large areas that are, you know, currently indicated as such. And my question is this not still kind of perpetuating the type of division that you were talking about in the beginning? If at this level we already dedicate such large areas for one type of, you know, density zoning, of course, this density zoning being an euphemism for income areas. So, you know, low density residential along the river, I would imagine being quite substantive, you know, mansions versus high density residential to be the kind of lower income area. So that's just for my understanding, you know, in terms of structure planning, to what extent are we kind of, you know, potentially perpetuating this kind of actual avoidance of, you know, mixing incomes? That's the first one. The second one, again, a technical question is, you speak about the barrier, the bypass being the barrier for development. But technically, once, you know, this gets proclaimed, I can imagine that there will be substantial kind of pressure from private developers to jump, you know, the highway immediately to where the land is cheap, hopefully, and where the plots will be bigger and less planning regulations will apply because it's not planned to the detail. So really, how strong are the tools and mechanisms to actually prevent that? I mean, how, you know, are they statutory mechanisms, or is it all based on goodwill? Because I'm just afraid that if it is based on goodwill, then we might not be successful in kind of, you know, stopping the growth for the foreseeable future to jump. So perhaps just to understand better what the technical tools are. And then the final third question is, I see a lot of huge areas for allotment gardens, agricultural areas, and so on. How was that envisaged in terms of also water resources that are available, allotment gardens? You know, could you speak a bit more towards what the vision for those agricultural areas are, and what, you know, perhaps also what the precedents are? Because of course, just judging by the sheer sizes of those areas, again, it seems as, you know, that it could be quite substantive in terms of especially water use that we know is relatively limited. So those three.
Okay, the first one about the the mixing of incomes and so on. The lower the river area is, we wanted to keep it low density there because it is environmentally sensitive, and we don't want it overpopulated with high density buildings and high rise things and so on. The idea is it is still very prominent that the mixing of densities. The highest density being along the activity spines and then grading down towards lower densities. But there is no division made about incomes. We haven't, because we want to make it inclusive. So the idea is to mix as much as possible. The second one, the technical portion, this structure plan, once it's approved by the city council, it goes to NAMPAP. And once it's approved there, it becomes a statutory document, right? It becomes a law book. This is how Swakopmund is going to develop, and everybody has to follow that. It is like a zoning scheme. It is, becomes, obviously, a strong developer will push the boundaries, but that is when our structure plan must be strong enough to convince them that yes, out there in the desert, the land is cheap, but you have to build your road there yourself. You have to put your infrastructure in there yourself. Wouldn't it be better to develop in town along there and there? You would have much higher, how do you call it, higher return on your money and so on. That is something which it's right over the world. If you get a developer who wants to do this mega Disney World somewhere, they will decide for you where you're going to put it.
You just add in land is owned physically by the municipality.
Yeah.
So they have ultimate control over those ones. Only the bits owned by other peoples, which is relatively small in the area that we live in, that could be pushing for something else outside of the municipal control.
But perhaps a follow-up question on that. I mean, I hear you, but we have seen some decisions that especially Swakopmund has taken in terms of public interest, selling a plot of land that was a swimming pool to build a secondary mediocre swimming pool that is not to the standard and so on. And so I mean there is precedent for questioning how wise the decisions that the municipality takes are. And of course, secondary issue is that given local authority finance, we also know that local authorities are pretty much under pressure to sell land in order to fund some of their operations because of the lack of other income. I mean, Swakopmund at least has a kind of economic base to speak of. But so I'm just wondering if in planning terms there are kind of stronger mechanisms really that can prevent or that can actually make sure that the phasing as it is envisaged also happens.
So what Winfried said is the planning part of it. I mean, the owners of the municipality, we live in a democratic society. The municipality has the right to make mistakes, if you call them. But the mistakes are now limited by what the structure plan would say the main intentions would be.
Mr. Watson, is that was your follow-up question, or would you like to?
No, mine are two very simple questions.
Okay.
This the third one, which you talked about, the allotment gardens. The idea was that we would place them along the freeway because that is usually areas which are not very nice, and so the idea is to if we densify the town and it becomes like say in future there's a lot of flats and so on. So people like to have a little green spot, but you can't have a green spot in a flat. So the idea originated in Germany. They call it Schrebergärten, where you go outside your flat, and there is an area where I don't know how many squares, 150, whatever, where you can plant plants and do green stuff and so on. Why along the road, the freeway? It's also the line where one can have easily put the water line from the desalination plant, as they intend to build another one in any case. And the current one is supplying Swakopmund, and the calculations show that there is sufficient water supply for the current population and until 20 years from now. So it can accommodate these kind of green areas. Obviously, it is, one can debate the size of these plots. Maybe it's a small plot, maybe it's bigger, but the idea is to have green areas along the freeway.
Mr. Watson?
If I point on the plan on there, can you just follow me with the cursor? Just, this area here,
yes.
It's north of Matutura.
Yes.
And there is already a municipality, has a lot of business sites all along there. Is this an interchange with the freeway? That's how it was understood.
Yeah, you see, the problem is that such a freeway and the roads authority doesn't allow things to cross its road. They are very religious about their space. That's why I see that road is one of these walls. But for the structure plan, if we were to cross the road, it would be there.
I mean, on the provisional plans that were given to Rita Kiba for the township design in that area, that was shown as an interchange. That's why I'm asking. Yeah, but they haven't built it yet, and maybe would be a good spot. Apart from that, the second CBD, we see that next business hub to be there, so it is just natural to cross the road over there. Okay. My second question was, I was told that the Transnormer has intentions of reorientating, realigning their railway line in any way to Walkish Bay, and that's somewhere further inland. Can you just tell us more about
Yes, they did think that, but it is a very costly exercise because it means a totally new railway line constructed from Hohenkrans over the river, then to Swakopmund, up to Walkish Bay. which would be more expensive than to realign it where we suggested it at this stage. So they're still working on both options. I think they will rather go for one closer to town because it links with the town, and then you can have deliveries and that kind of stuff there. Their main aim is also the passenger transport. So we are actually relying heavily on this new idea of theirs to increase railway importance for passenger travel.
Okay, please, I will slip out at 3:30. I don't think there's something new.
Good. Thank you so much. Now, Ms. Rita Kiva, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I think the first concern that I had was pretty much addressed by Philip, just about the looking at the development within before you go outside your buffer that was mentioned there, whether this tool is going to really be so strong enough to curb development outside that buffer. That was one of the things that I really also had a concern about. I know that, well, local authorities are very good in putting policies in place, but how strong will this tool really be to make sure that development first is taking place within the built-up area before the 30 years now will determine that now it's time to go out? That was the very first one that I had a concern about. And then the second one was about the agricultural zones that was mentioned there. I'm just thinking the agricultural areas, is it because the location where they are now, it's because of the organic patterns of the town. But when you look at your Mondesas and the rest, is there any provision made for that? Because now we're talking about even resetting the way how we do planning, trying to have mixed development or mixed uses. Is there any provision made for the areas outside the zone, the agricultural zone, for instance? Can residents within Mondesa, for instance, also be provided with an agricultural zone? Is it something that was considered or not? And then the last question was, okay, I didn't hear anything about how the structure plan will foster or improve or even encourage developers or earth owners to really make sure that they become part and parcel of this whole structure plan, to make sure that the development within is first taken care of. Is there any incentives that the structure plan is proposing? I didn't read the whole document. I didn't have time to read everything. So I'm just asking, maybe it is provided for in the structure plan document, I don't know, but if anyone can maybe just give us that. And then I also checked on page 81 of the structure plan. There is the areas of economic opportunities that are quite highlighted. They actually look like a huge fire burning somewhere there, which is quite good. But then I was just wondering, I'm just seeing little pockets in outside, especially your current CBD, where currently existing economic opportunities are. And I'm just wondering what is happening in the other areas. Is there any consideration? I know that the line is running up to Mondesa on the other top where the second CBD will be, but within, I just see little pockets. Was there any consideration for extending policies? Is there ever any policies existing to also create smaller economic opportunities? You know, those are the three concerns that I'm just having. Thank you.
Okay, if I just chip in there. Okay, the first one was about the legality or the enforceability of it. Here is, I think, we have mentioned it a number of times in the document that the jumping of a freeway can only happen if ABC takes place. So it is anchored in the document that before something can jump the freeway, there are certain prerequisites to have. The second one with agriculture. Yeah, look, the thing is, we want to encourage even urban farming, urban agriculture. We want to encourage people to have backyard farms, kind of thing. This is not the scope of a structure plan at this stage, but the idea is to say if somebody wants to do an agricultural thing in his backyard, he must be encouraged to do so and not be held back. But apart from that, there's also, we want to foresee certain public open spaces which are also multi-use. There's, for instance, the current sewer plant, or the old, they call it the old sewer plant in the middle of Swakopmund, which we want to actually see as a public open space, including agricultural areas. And there's plans now to do some agricultural development there as well. So that kind of thing is thought of if it happens. It must happen along the, say, the activity routes, spaces. As I said, this is an overall plan at the top level. We haven't gone down to earth level. The next thing is the businesses and places where businesses are and where businesses are not. Like for instance, the industrial area. When you want, if the airport moves and we put an industrial area there, it mustn't be just industrial. It must be industrial areas which allow housing in it as well, even housing within an industrial earth. So the zoning there has to change a little bit, or the zoning conception. Currently, you have an industrial earth, but you may only have a caretaker's flat on it. And we want to actually allow the industrialist to have his workers' housing on the same property. That kind of mixed use we're thinking of. Look, the thing is, we're trying to channel people's ideas towards the activity spines. So if you're thinking of investing somewhere and you see this plan and you see, okay, I want to make a business, the best place would be along the activity routes. They would obviously have a better investment than if you were to put your business somewhere in the middle of a residential area where nobody comes along. So it becomes a logical business decision. Where would you want to put your business? And that is where the structure plan actually encourages the people and says, look, if you do there, you will make business. If you do it there, you will not make business. That kind of thing.
There's a question in the chat, then we will give the floor to Ms. Ilya Tula, and then there's a question here in the room. The question in the chat reads, was the focus of the report to produce a zoning plan? SDF, I suppose, is to provide a spatial representation of the area or the city. In the document, the visual representation of the ideas is not contextualized. I would assume to sell the ideas, it should be contextualized. I presume that the contextualization, I mean, she's probably referring to the images that are used to animate or to basically exemplify what is desirable in the case of this Spatial Development Framework. I mean, I remember that when I was reading this document, it says that this program or this document is strongly inspired by Copenhagen, which is a best practice internationally with regards to mobility and other matters. So perhaps I think the question of contextualization, the way that I read this, is perhaps which other references could be perhaps more kind of applicable to the context, or that when somebody sees this reference, one is reminded more of a Namibian urban area or even a Southern African or Sub-Saharan African urban area. I'm kind of like trying to expand on this question, but I think that's what it kind of is trying to get at.
You see, the thing is, the town planning scheme is what Barry is doing now. He will work it together with the structure plan, and the town planning scheme will then recognize the zoning, where exactly the zoning, how the zoning of each and every property. The contextualization, the problem is we don't have such good examples in Namibia or in Southern Africa to have pictures of. That's why we took pictures from international. But the idea is we are a global family, and a square is a square is a square, whether it is here in Windhoek or whether it is in Timbuktu or whether it's in Italy. It depends on how we use that space and how we put furniture in it and trees and things like that. So that's why these pictures should not be seen as a European picture or an Asian or whatever. Once you see the space, the picture tries to convey, basically. So that would be the context.
Okay. Thank you. Ilya, can you hear us? Ilya, I can ask, but I'm actually.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I think I was muted there for a second. Good afternoon to everybody, and I have two comments and one main question. My first comment is I'd actually like to congratulate the team that has worked on the document. I think I very much like the theme. I think the theme is quite clear. The theme of inclusive city is quite appropriate for the times and the challenges that we are going through. And being from the region, I think I appreciate that they've managed to find their own direction and defining themselves to focus on tourism. And also the second one that you've mentioned, I think it was tourism and what was the second one? Tourism and mining. So I think it's very complementary to the neighbor, which is Wellfish Bay. And then that's my first comment. And then the second one is, I think the document is quite clear and quite concise, and it's very good to see all of these forward-thinking ideas, especially the highways and how the zonings has been distributed. I am a little bit concerned about the large area that has been demarcated for industry, even though you don't specifically want to focus on the industrial route. And so then my question is that what are the policies that are put in place, or even if it is just one policy that has been put in place to ensure implementation of the plan? Because it's one thing to have a good plan, but it's another to ensure that it has been implemented. So that is my question. Thank you.
Well, as we said just now, once this plan is approved by municipality and NEMPAP, it becomes a statutory document, and the municipality has to needs to be guided by this plan. If the thing is, if some developer comes there and has a different idea, they have to motivate it, and it needs to be a very strong motivation to change the plan. It is a long process to change the plan from now onwards, which then would discourage any developer to try something different.
Good. We have a question here in the room. Can you say your name and?
My name is Michelle. Yeah, well, I'm so first, perhaps I would say the plan is creating a dialogue with state development. But my biggest concern, one biggest concern is that the acknowledgement in the old Mondesa, there's some very strong elements that can promote urban tourism. They've been totally being ignored. And I think that is also what Peter highlighted. There is no activities fund that is created. So my biggest fear is that the current structure is killing the essence of where the township is. And that is basically, you can see how you have allocated your economic zones, and it's like putting it in a ring. And as I said, there are quite significant contribution in individuals towards the development of Swakopmund. And I think if we are looking into really to activate those pockets within, I think we could use those individual spaces or individual houses that people use together for certain activities, which is the same thing that if you look into South Africa and Soweto, yeah, in the good way too, they've selected those individuals, and people have then tried to create an income around it, because in that particular house becomes some sort of visiting area. There's great emphasis of the structure there, which is anchoring. I see the anchor, would say it's the Daniel Kamo, that is the anchor. But the question is, we never acknowledge Daniel Kamo's house in the township. That is just like one of the, and that is where basically, that is where we are motivating the economic aspect. But I think in architecture, we respond to context. And I just feel like that is where the structure plan in my thinking that it has failed. And I hope that there is opportunity to revise that. And there is currently activities happening, and it's nothing like.
Okay, that's not quite true. There is a plan there, a map where we identified activity routes.
Let me just maybe finish and then we can. Yeah, the other one, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit late, but there was a discussion on the coastline, and taking that there's a greater, the structure plan is borrowing from Copenhagen. When Copenhagen, when you go there, basically, the beach is extremely celebrated. Irrespectively, they also have a rough coast, like almost like Swakopmund, quite rough, and they created, now along the beach, they created some clubs, where the boat clubs and some swimming area where the ocean integrated people start celebrating. And we can create an outdoor swimming kind of activity. And when we take it further, when you look at what they've done in Bamboo, it's like they've integrated the ocean within the residential area. And I think people there basically they can move within their residential area. And I think it's quite a good idea. And I think if the structure plan shouldn't be rigid for that, because it has been done, and I'm sure it could be integrated. And then my biggest fear is only that I fear that the local authority is going to become very rigid, because the explanation of the coastal line in terms of activity notes, it's not really so well defined. And you might come up with a different motivation, and they say, well, the structure plan doesn't say this. And knowing Swakopmund local authority, the way of thinking, it's quite a difficult. And I know the coastline, you will get some serious comments along that. And I think it's the element that has been picked up. That is the areas where you used to play with your kids. Basically, it's really not to say it's nothing new. For someone else, it could be, but for me, that is where we used to play. And in fact, now with the new policies, we are pushed away from, and that is for me also a greater concern. People are not really integrated, but instead, as you can't have all this space, you can only concentrate here. And the aspect of trying to have elements like the tiger reef, for instance, is I don't know and I hope that is the idea that you had in mind. And you being an urban designer, I could sense your elements, but people who understand the structure plan better will spend more time in providing some more clear sketches. And I feel like perhaps not enough time has been accorded and I know I've seen some of your work, but I feel like there's a lot of the planning aspects too dominant into the structure plan, and I think, and these are the aspects that are creating a lot of questions. And that is just I'm hoping that people also, when they look at the document, they can celebrate the essence of what the urban design is. And I fear that it's not coming out, and we really needed to, Philip to run his urban design department.
Okay, may I just come in there? Okay, this is like a plan where we identify other activity routes, the lower ones, moving into the areas. According to the beach area, we did a detailed study of it, and I agree fully with you that our plan was or is to activate that beach, but that beach must be accessible to everybody. And the thing is, so we thought of activities like tiger reefs, but it must be things which are movable, or which, if it doesn't work, it must be able to be demolished and taken away. So we were thinking of a beach volleyball, international beach volleyball venues, things like that, which should happen along the beach. I think you can still see it here. Until Platz am Meer, from Platz am Meer until the mall, the entire strip is still open for that kind of development. And I did do a urban design sketch there, but it was the one that is the entire. Yes, that was one of them. But go down, is it? Down the road. Yeah, not go down.
I think it's the one that it's.
Yes, that one there, where we suggested now. I did an even more detailed plan like that, but it was decided that this plan is sufficient explanation of what should happen along the beach. And then further down still is the design of that, where the urban design portion comes in. That kind of
I agree with you, but I just feel like more should. I think it's for someone that has a visual perspective, you will understand. But my biggest fear, if you go back to your other layer, it's if you put such notes, and I'm interested in that sport, they would just tell you, because I recently did an application just opposite the old Unita Mall. Bushbury. Yes, the second house from Bushbury. Just my email was flattened. It's just but the structure plan is not actually addressing it, and it's giving it this, and the town council just didn't know how to respond. So they've been just shifting the goalposts all the time. But now, thankfully, it's been addressed. That is exactly what it's just that. I mean, what Julia is saying, the plan is built, but those policies just needs to pop on. Because we will struggle to get the ideas.
I'm fully with you. The thing is just where do we draw the line between the urban design and the town planners? The town planners, they still want to keep the sphere of, because I did a total detailed design of a Daniel Kammer, because I needed to know what can I do there, how does it look, that was, but I went already too far for the town planners.
There's one question on the chat, but that's the second part. We can start with Martin, which is here, and then we.
Yeah, Winfried, I think this concept of the shop houses is great as a kind of infill mechanism, and I think it's figure 73. You can really, for me, that I don't know if you just want to go to it there.
Small.
Yeah, it's just a much better representation of I think the kind of variety that the plan is encouraging. Figure 73, sorry, it's down. So a map there. Yeah, so, and you talk a lot about infill throughout the plan, but it seems to be in very targeted locations, and in these specifically, in that, if you just look at the figure there. Yeah, my concern is just that it's not really, it kind of feels when I look at this that there are two sides of Swakopmund that are being created here. There's the one where you have this infill, you have this vibrant kind of inner city, and then on the outskirts you still kind of, you've got this low density, you know, quiet areas where not much is going on. And yeah, I'm thinking of all of this with regards to the new Urban Planning Act, which is going to come out and which is going to dictate how things are. I mean, the municipality will be able to say, okay, we can go ahead here, or you know, we can't. So I almost feel, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that that you have this very stark contrast between the two sides of Swakopmund that I still see in this figure. I think it's, I mean, I think that it's a great step in the right direction. But
maybe can I a follow-up question or related to this, if I may, is the question of indeed, like you described, infill and so on, but to which extent does the plan talk to the transformation of existing residential kind of monofunctional residential areas? So, you know, where there are, you know, primarily monofunctional, will there be either incentives or rezoning, kind of bulk rezonings to allow for certain things that the current plans and regulations don't allow to kind of, because I guess, you know, private properties can't be instructed what to do, but they can be incentivized, right? In terms of what can develop there. So perhaps that links a little bit to your question.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not the town planner. I don't know all the you know, I see spaces and I see people and things, and I know there's these technical things, and apparently, you know, if we have this kind of plan and we say we want to have along this route, we want to have it more commercialized and so on, they say they have this mechanism to rezone them, and you pay a betterment fee, and you then are allowed to do more on your earth. I know there's still all these bureaucracy things. I'm more in designing portions, but and I never understood how do you actually say to that guy now, okay, you can now do a third flat or fourth flat on your property and so on. So that becomes then Barry Watson's task to change this town planning scheme, which allows then for these. They will then have to change the colors on the town planning scheme thing. And as I said, the other thing which stresses me out totally is this shop house thing. And he says it's a business. It's not a business. Yes, it has a business component, but it's not business. It is something else. It's a mixed use. And the thing is, it's residential. You can choose. Do I want a business? Do I want residential? Do I want both? That kind of thing. So that is a dedicated own zone.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, just to follow on. So really, my concern is if you look at the main map, you don't see any of that stuff.
Yes.
And as a town planner, I mean, I would go, no, this is a residential. I mean, that's the first thing that a town planner is going to say. This is zoned as residential. We're not allowing any other uses here.
So that's why we must go into detail then into the plan.
Must unmute.
Hello?
Yes. Hey, we can hear you. Hey.
Can you hear me clearly, Guillermo?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Could you guys please go back to the map?
Yes. Here we are. This one.
No, yes, this one. Okay. I think, okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I also have a concern similar to what Philip had about this whole blob of high density residential, just below the airport and north of the proposed industrial. Why I have a problem with it is that if you look towards the CBD, just you don't even need to zoom in to figure out what will happen there. Can you just see that there's a whole host of activities in this particular area? And then when you go up there to the higher residential area, there's basically nothing. It's just higher residential. Yes, I know it's not a definite plan yet. Changes will come. But one thing that I would like to see is that there is some higher order government facility or an activity or some kind of an anchor use that is planned or that is anticipated in that area, so that it's not just such a monofunctional blob of residential. I think that will also help to sort of liven up the place. If you have that anchor there, it stimulates other activities, other businesses. It draws people to the place. I'm just worried that it will be another bleak, high density area in the future. And then I have a question for Wilfried. I was just worried that, say, all along, I'm not quite sure which stretch of Daniel Camo will now accommodate the shop houses or the house shops or whatever it is. But if that is adequate along a very important activity route, I have my doubts about that. I would think that something else should complement that mixed land uses along that spine.
Okay, the idea is that the shop houses are to be the entire length on the western side only.
Excuse me?
The shop house development is to occur on the western side along its entire length.
The Tamariskia side?
No, on the western side.
Okay.
Each side. Because it's lower, it's a maximum 4 stories. The idea is not. The idea is also that the buildings are joining from earth boundary to earth boundary, so that becomes like a long, how do you call it, cityscape. And on the eastern side, there are already properties which we then would say would get an upgrade to the 40-meter building height and mixed use from, you get these block of flats where there's businesses at the bottom and the flats on top. The idea is that it is to be, there are bigger plots and bigger urban, which then bigger developers can then do something there. So that would be somebody with money, and on the other side is somebody who hasn't got money yet, but it then becomes this lively zone, this lively activity route. So I don't see a house next to a house, but I see a row house along the entire way. The other thing is, I think that is a town planners thing, this the big green blob where one says that is only residential. I don't see that as one big blob residential. I see that as a total mixed use thing. That's why I'm pushing for the shop house. And if somebody there, somewhere, say now where the H2 stands, decides to put his shop house and the guy next to him and the guy next to him and the guy next to him, then there was this new activity spine will develop. That's why we have written in this document that that is what is supposed to happen there. It is not a single use. That is the thing about the zoning thing, which cracks me out, is that you have a blue color, you have a yellow color, and that's it. That's like the end of the world. You may only do yellow or you may only do blue. This is what we want to try to break down with this structure plan. It is all in the text as well. The motivation, it is actually in depth. We're not going to, on a structure plan, show each individual earth and say, look, you can do this and that thing. It is in the text, and the arguments are there, and how it can look. That is the idea.
Okay, we're gonna have a couple of more questions just to.
I don't think, hello?
Yes.
I don't think I don't even think I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, and that 40-meter wide, high buildings along Daniel Kamo, is that also really feasible?
We've worked it out.
I would like Ilya to join in.
Ilya, would you like to say something?
And then also, the area that I said, that I talked about, the high density area, I'm not saying that that is it. I'm saying I need an anchor activity there, similar to what you have in a university here or university there. And I just browsed through the whole document. Somewhere is a technical university also, but where is it? I'm just saying we should have something stronger also in the midst of that higher density area, whether it is mixed, and I hope it will be mixed, just like you. I'm just saying we need something strong there also.
Geraldine, just to get all on the same page, are you talking about this area
I'm talking
here?
about J3 and J2, and I talked about H2 here, H2 and Y. I made 2 comments.
Okay, J3. So the first J3 and J2, you're talking about already on the other side of the highway. These areas.
Yeah.
Can you see the cursor, right? Okay.
I'm just saying that in the future, Philip, that we need something there also. Can you see? You know, I just need something to be a little bit more alive. Yes, Wilfried now said there will be mixed users and whatever. That is good. But what we've seen is that you need an anchor, a high order anchor in a facility like that. And it can be laid down now, or it can be recommended now at this stage already. It's not necessary that any detail should be put towards it, but it can be recommended at this stage.
Yeah, but the thing is, I try to avoid that because I don't want to jump the freeway. The entire document says we must stay within the freeway area, and only say in 100 years' time, when things are different, we don't live anymore, then the next generation can decide on what they're going to do there. Okay. But at this stage, we don't want to. I mean, I actually didn't even have so many lines there like they've got there now. You know?
And then we have to conclude. I would just give maybe the floor to Anna, and there's one question posted on the chat. Ilya, would you like to continue with to follow up with Geraldine? Ilya, we just have to unmute, and then we're fine. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
one of the comments that I'm in agreement with, or that I'll say concerns me, is the fact that already at this level, Wilfred and Barry cannot agree on what the zoning or how mixed use should be defined or how it can be used. So at this level already, it concerns me when we cannot agree with each other. I think at this level already, that's why I agree with Geraldine, that at this level already, we should try to incorporate and define already such things, like the zoning of how you want your shop house, for example, to be zoned and where it should be. And it can't just be along one spine, one activity spine, like the Daniel Kamo, for example, because your shop house, the way I imagine it, is something that would be even in the location, and this is where it is needed the most. If I had a house in Mondesa or wherever, and I paint or something, or I fix cars or that kind of things, or I sell, I do hair or something, that's where it will be most needed. So you can't expect me to move my whole household and then move to that specific spine. The document has to allow already for that type of implementation to take place. And the fact that it's approved and it's a structural document doesn't make it enough for it to be implemented correctly. Yeah, that's the comment that I have.
Okay, the thing is, I'm fully in agreement with you. That is exactly why I'm pushing the shop house idea. And it has been written about it in the document itself as well. and we want to encourage this kind of development, the shop house. But the thing is, the shop houses along activity spines would obviously make more money than some shop house in the middle of a location. But it always happens. It suddenly happens that a whole street decides to do shop houses, and suddenly that place becomes the next node. That is what we cannot foresee, and that is what we want to, you know, that still is doable in the structure plan.
Anna, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a whole discussion on its own. I was just thinking, how do we facilitate informal trading? Or is it now policy in this country, we have no more informal trading, everybody will become formal? So then we hope we have solved the economy of the country, but it's not a reality. And also that was one thing, and the other thing is that we talk about north of Mondesa, there is space for incremental development for the very low income. Did you look at the proportion of people that are actually qualifying as low income in Swakopmund? Is there some, sorry, I didn't go into the documents, so I don't know this, so please excuse me. And the other thing is, you talk about pockets of info. Isn't it possible, you know, even if you talk about just shop houses, that the shop houses could be an edge of an info or incremental housing development for the very low income, and that way your spine will bring the people into the town instead of having the northern part for the very low income. So that is, there's a lot of questions, sorry, and it's from somebody that didn't read the document, that just jumped in to see there is such a event and she came to listen and talk.
Now you see, the thing is, the problem is about the shop house is that nobody actually knows what we're talking about except for us, who are knowledgeable. Because there is not a shop house in Namibia which one can say, look, there it is. In Cape Town, if you go down Cape Town main route, the whole road is shop houses. So, you know, we need to develop a culture about these. It is already happening in Karatura and so on, but it is still a residential earth. But they say, yeah, but I'm doing my business there already, but you're doing it illegally there. So we want to legalize that. We want to make you be able to live and work on your property. Now, your ideas, obviously, they are possible in the overall plan. But the thing is, we're not going to go street by street. That is not the idea of a structure plan. So if somebody comes along there and says, look, can we do this? Then the municipality will come to us or consult the structure plan and they say, yeah, look, you can do it here, or we can do it like this. This flexibility must come in, or this consciousness of the shop house and the more freer development, which we want to encourage. And obviously we want to then have urban designers who do that for you. But the thing is, we need to split the idea of what is the structure plan, what is an urban design, from which it comes down to. But we have the same thing with the CBD. There's a lot of German people and a lot of guys who are very concerned about their little backyard, and they're concerned about their little gate or something there. And you know, you may do everything as long as it's not in my backyard or something. So now we suggested, even in this structure plan, they call it form-based coding. Which means that we go then street for street and we decide how does the street look like, how can it be, how can development happen there, because it's very sensitive area.
That's a nice concept. That's participatory. So on a street level, people can plan.
Yes.
Which what we do in informal settlement upgrading. Yes. We're saying let's come together and plan what we want to do. And I think it's a very nice idea. You might have total opposites, but if you have a say, you can map all your businesses.
Yes.
People come together and say, how can we improve our businesses in that area?
Yeah, that's the idea.
That is a very nice concept to think about street level planning. But
Those are the illustrations.
What I would say is, the TV, there was a lot of the discussion went into, I guess we should have been a bit more clear in the beginning with what is a spatial development framework, what is a structure plan or a planning scheme, and where do they fit? But it's correct to say that the spatial development framework is the overall vision, and it should be very integrative. I think there should have aspects of education, health, infrastructure, and many other aspects, and should present a strong vision that can then permeate to the other documents. So I think, if I understand correctly, these are just one of the few spatial development frameworks. Walvis Bay has one, then it's now Swakopmund, Windhoek has one, but it should become basically a document that should guide development in all urban areas. Probably, there will be many more to discuss. I was just want to before we close, I see John Hayter in the participants. Just to really kind of close down today's session, I would like to ask John if he would like to say a few words as a closing remark. John is working at the municipality of Swakopmund. John, can you hear us? Or perhaps he's only listening today.
Yes, hello.
Hey, John. Hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good. Good afternoon. Are you in Swakop?
Yes, I'm in Swakop.
Very good. Did you listen to what was discussed here? We're wrapping up, and really, we're just wrapping up the discussion, but would you have some views? How did you see the discussion from the point of view of your work?
Yes, the discussions has been very fruitful, and I'm happy, but unfortunately today I'm not going to share my sentiment, but it was good to hear from the professions what they are feeling about the structure plan. And what excited me most is that most of their concern has been my concern as well. And they also an issue that came out of the urban agriculture. What is important is to say we are running these two important project, the structure plan as well as the town planning scheme, which are running concurrent. And we already made provision in the town planning scheme to make agriculture as a primary use. You can use your residential site prior to construction of a house. You can have a garden, or you can maybe have a small garden, which is a primary use, which doesn't need council consent, as long as you happen to be, or your site happen to be located on a fertile land. That is one that I would like to highlight. Are you hearing me very well?
Yes, we're hearing you. Yes.
Yes, we are.
I just want to make sure that what I'm saying is getting across. Yes, I should also again, the debate has been around shop house concept, which I will also to say, shop house concept, I would like the profession to assist me because in my definition of a shop house, it's already accommodated in terms of our resident occupation policy, which allows small scale businesses to be operated from residentials. And if what we need to get, if we are to get the correct definition of a shop house, we must have to then make a distinction. The difference between the small scale resident occupation policy that offers people to operate from home and the actual general business provision that provides for people to have the dwelling unit on their business site to operate businesses and so on. The moment we can answer that, then I think we will be definitely having the correct definition of a shop house, but I leave it to the house or to the profession to digest, because it's something that I have been highlighting as well. that yes, in my opinion, it's an overlap of what we already make provision for in the town plan scheme, and that the current provision is not area confined. It covers the entire city. It can allow anyone, anywhere, to be given the opportunity to operate a small business and live at their premises still. And I think I don't have to say too much, otherwise I will contradict myself. And unless you have questions that you would like me to attend to. Welcome
we will do is to make a short summary of the discussion today. I mean, just a summary of the general comments, and we're happy to share it with you as well, John. I mean, we can also send it to, of course, to Wilfried and to the colleagues in SPC. This is just simply a platform for discussion. So, I mean, it's not like a formal submission or anything, but just like some of the points that are highlighted in this discussion at the university. But I can also say, I mean, is that okay, John?
Yes, it's okay. And while we are there, I think I must also get to Geraldine's point of view where he said we must have a note or highlighting some of the major land users already within certain areas. For instance, we can indicate a major or the regional hospital where it should be allocated as a university site. With regard to the university site, we already identified we have a site for a university that we can still reflect in the structure plan. But I agree with Geraldine's point of view to say some major aspect for a government institution, for instance, should already be highlighted. Where are we going to put our future regional hospital, for instance, or any other important land use? Thank you very much.
Good, and then thank you very much to everybody in Zoom. For those who might still be in the phone, thank you. We will have to follow up with you because you didn't have access to what we showed in the plans, but through the structures of the federation, we will hopefully make sure that there's a bit more access to these documents that are important for the urban areas. I'd like to also thank those who are here in the room. And as I said, we'll try to do more discussions about these documents that are, or these projects that are either planned or ongoing that are very much deciding Namibia's urban future. With the collaboration that we have with the city of Windhoek, we will also have been requested to comment on some of the documents that are already available on the Spatial Development Framework of Windhoek. So that might be also some kind of another event that we could organize if partners are all in agreement. And then other events that we will try also in this mixed modality between live and online that so far has worked fairly well. Thank you very much. And thank you also for being with us and all of us who are here. Thank you. Okay. We'll end the meeting now.
Okay. All right. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Meeting.
Oh, went well, then. Oh,
actually, it does work if you
technology
get through
The
all the.
technology, you know what, each governor's office has some kind of this kind of communication units which they were doing for health. It's regional governors offices. I was just thinking with our federation members, it might be possible that we can invite them, okay, no, not in Swakopmund, I don't think Swakop, I don't know what's the limit of Swakop's people getting together. But yeah, that they can be at a place where we can actually, that they can share.
I mean, just to understand what it's